Life is often so busy, taking us here, there, seemingly everywhere. When you aren't able to make it to church, we hope you are fed and nourished by listening to the preaching of God's Word wherever you are at the moment. In the meantime, take care, and God bless.
Commentary before I proclaim the anthem that was sung, of which I did not understand a single word. And I know that there were words up there, but I don't watch movies with subtitles. The tone, the texture, the robust nature of what they sang. We've had solos, and I thank them all, and they've been phenomenal. But I am an old church guy whose mom was trained by Paul Montz, the greatest organist in the Lutheran tradition. My mom was a choir director. I might act like I don't know music, but their signals were back. And I love it. Thanks be to God. The sermon. We're continuing with renewing on Sunday and sharing on Wednesdays. We've talked about monitor. We've talked about read. We've talked about prayer. We've talked about talk. And now we're talking about serve. And you know what I think? I think we save the best for last. Now, I don't know if you think that these sermon series come on tablets from heaven. They don't. We think of them sometimes very late in the game. But we think of the texts, we think of the topics. And then Tim and I machinate at the end, and I don't know, my good friend, whether or not we actually knew what we were doing or we just flipped a coin. Let's just go with A, that we save the best for last. Because I believe in all the things we've talked about, but I do believe with all my heart, there is no more certain way, there is no more sure way to see the face of Jesus, to feel Jesus and his love, than when we serve. So even though this is the cusp, the end of Lent, Palm Sunday next week, the best is last. 3 points. The fear of enough. There is a kind of famous children's sermon where the pastor gets up and has 10 apples. And he or she will put the apples on the altar. And the only reason I didn't is because Jack, the camera person, says never turn my back to the camera. So I want you to imagine apples. And so they have the kids come down, and he or she says, there are 10 apples. Today I'm going to talk about tithing. What's a tithe? T-I-T-H-E. And then you realize that this is really not a children's sermon, and chances are it's also during stewardship time. It's aimed right over the kids to mom and dad, and everyone's sitting on their wallets, hiding their purse, because here comes tithe. But back to the children's sermon. We have 10 apples. A tithe is in the Bible, suggesting that we give 1/10 of our income, gross, not net, which is kind of gross, to the church. So in other words, if you make $50,000, you are encouraged strongly to give $5,000 to the church, and God's very wise. For people like me, not very good at math, 10%, 100,000, 10,000. You know the drill. But back to the story. So, boys and girls, you have 10 apples, and a tithe is to give one of those away. So if Billy Bob or Beth wants an apple, would you give them an apple? And of course, they're in church. They're going to say, because most of them don't want to eat apples anyway. But they look at those apples and think, that's no big deal because you have 9 left. And then he or she brings out 10 $1 bills and says, well, you have $10. And somebody comes up, the same people perhaps, and says, can I borrow $1? And you have 9 left, yes? So of course you're going to say, you can have 1. But if you actually run out that ground ball, as I said before, you have $9 left. At the same time, if you make $100,000, you are to give $10,000 to the church. And people are thinking, can we go back and talk about apples some more? not stewardship time. Last year you were more generous than you were the year before. Don't need to have apples. How about them apples? Thanks to you. The point of the story is the fear of having enough. Because what if I need an apple? What if I need one of those dollars? And here is just a little bit of a list of things of which we fear that we might run out of: money, patience, energy, faith, love, and time. Can you imagine how much better you would sleep? How much better I would sleep if I did not have the fear of losing and not having enough of these. You ever worry about money? Don't lie in church. I know people who make a lot of money and they still worry about money because they spend a lot of the money. And then if that's not the case, then how about some more? How much is enough? Patience. Remember when your kids were little? Remember when she was little and tried your, okay, she might still try your patience. That example. But now that our kids are older in our house, I remember there were days where I didn't think I could make it when one was 8 and one was 6 and one was 2. Well, we made it. And I wish I could go back. Energy, same thing. Want to conserve my energy. Faith, will I have enough faith? Love, we always have enough love. Time. I would actually serve more if I had more time. You don't understand how busy I am. I don't know if I have enough time to help other people. I can't believe I just said that. Have you ever thought that? I will wait until I retire, and then I will donate my time. And then some people retire and say, I don't know how much time I have left, so I'm not going to do that now. I'm not mocking. I am simply saying the world in which I live, we worry about having enough of these things. Imagine if you didn't worry, that you would be lacking if you just gave away yourself. Last week I had coffee with a friend that I hadn't seen for a long period of time. Not only pandemic, but a hockey dad, and our son is now in college. And so we'll call him Ron because that's his name. You know, many times when we tell a story, and usually when it's unsavory, we change the name. And then Bob's at home thinking, I didn't do that. But especially when it's something that's good. His name is Ron. And I went to Smith House and had coffee. It was safe. There was nobody else there. Just my buddy and myself. You know what I learned? That you don't have to wait to go to Prop or Matter in St. Louis Park or Feed My Starving Children or fill in the blank to serve. Those are important, nuanced these days, but always important. But many times it also requires a couple hours of time. You know what doesn't require a couple hours of time? Just serving the people who are in front of you. Like Ron. Ron's my friend. Ron also attends this church. And so maybe I was supposed to just be his friend / pastor. It's a weird world in which we live, by the way. But I realize about Ron is that I want to be more like him. Because when he talked to me about what he was doing in his life, and he's brilliant. He's brilliant. I don't know what his IQ is, but he's brilliant. But I know he's even more caring than he is smart. And when you sit with him, he's just locked in. And he sat in the presence of his pastor, and he served me and took care of all my needs. And when I left, I feel like he paid the bill, metaphorically speaking. I asked him what he'd been up to, and I realized that the Ron that I knew had only gained momentum and caring because wherever he goes, he leaves people better than they were before. And toward the end of their time, he said, "I'm sorry, buddy, I gotta go because I have to go give plasma." Ron had cancer. And he could have said, "I almost died. And I'm going to take the time that I have in my life and make sure that I do the things that fill my cup." But Ron serves every person he meets. And I want to be more like him because he's never afraid of running out of anything. He gives of his time, his money, his care, his attention, everything. Point number 2, serving others in the name of Christ is a win-win-win. It was about 1995. I was in Incarnation Lutheran Church in North Oaks, and there was a woman by the name of Ginny Sundberg, who was wonderful, but also I got to know her because her husband, the Reverend Dr. Walter Skip Sundberg, taught church history at Luther Seminary, and he made church history exciting to me, which means Skip is a miracle worker. But I was at the community center, kind of working out, when Ginny came up to me and we had a friendship, and their daughters were in confirmation, and I ran confirmation there. And Ginny came up to me and she said, "You know, David, you ever thought about running?" And I thought, well, that's kind of an odd thing to say. Do I need to run? But she said, "You know what? You need to run because you want to have the runner's high." And she went on for about 7 minutes talking about a runner's high. Not just because of Ginny, but I started running because I fell in love with a woman by the name of Joy Pellicci, whose father is Ferruccio Pellicci, who's 100% Italian and 100% Catholic, and I'm 100% Norwegian and 100% Lutheran, and I didn't know if he would like me, so we went running. And then we did 5Ks and 10Ks, and then half marathons, and then we did marathons, and in 5 years I ran 11 marathons. Because Ginny thought I should go run and find that runner's high. I hated to run. Marathons? Bad idea. You want to run one? Talk to me. Talk to Pastor Matthew or Hannah. They've run less. They're smarter. My favorite experience right around St. Thomas. I can't stand that campus. I can't stand Summit Avenue at mile 23. And I was better at eating training food than I was training. You just ask God to take your life. I felt particularly bad one time. There was a police officer that was standing in an intersection. He had to be 6'5". I walked up to him and I said, "What do I have to say to your mother to have you put me in jail?" He looked down at me, he said, "Move it." And I did, slowly. But the point of this is that on my mother's honor, I asked God to give me one marathon where I felt good. I wanted to have a runner's high once. I was running down Summit Avenue in a marathon, and I was waving at people. I don't wave at people anyway. But I was waving. If I could have, if it wouldn't have been weird, I would have kissed babies like a politician. I was in such a good mood. I was skipping. My father-in-law was like, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I am just loving this." And all this is so true. I crossed that finish line and I retired from running. I haven't run since. Don't look. Don't judge. But I had asked God one time, I wanted to feel good, and when that happened, I quit. Like Forrest Gump in the movie, I just stopped running. The point of that long story, I promise you, with more certainty than the great Ginny Sundberg, that when you serve others in the name of Christ, you will have a server's high. Guaranteed. Every time you say something nice to someone, It will give you a buzz. Every time you go out of your way and do something kind for somebody else, you will feel good. Now, we'll start there because it's not the deepest level of caring, but it also feels good. And that's one of the wins. The second win is it's great for the person who is served. Has there ever been a time when someone has said something nice to you and you said in your soul, I wish they wouldn't? I can't believe that person said that I seemed good today, or that was good, or the music was good, or you're just a good friend. And what about the last win? It's a win-win-win, because when we take good care of the people who belong to God, which is everyone, God is happy. If you're good to my children, I'm good with you. If you look at them with honesty and you even tell them something that they need because they need to sharpen part of their life, I'm good with it. But if you look upon them with loving kindness, makes my heart warm. Serving others in the name of Christ is a win-win-win. I don't know how many wins we have in society right now. How many times do we even have a win-win? What I'm saying to you, my friends in Christ, is that when we serve others in the name of Christ, it is a win-win-win, which is awesome, awesome, awesome. Servers high. Point number 3, don't steal my blessing. I put this in quotes because it's a quote by a friend of mine by the name of Tim. I'll call him Tim because his name is Tim. And when we first came here, my wife and myself, Tim and his wife befriended us, and they befriend and they serve people every day of their life. Now, there are a couple of types of people. I've told you this before. They're the people who walk into a party, and there are the people who say, I'm here. And then there are the people who walk in and say, hey, you're here, and you're here, and you're here. I'll talk to you first and I'll get over there. I know it's a generalization, but that's the thing about generalizations. They're general. The point being is that there are two types of people, I think. There are people that don't mind taking stuff from other people. I know people who own businesses will have a shirt out on there and it's the wrong color. The person doesn't even like the color of t-shirt and it won't even come close to fitting them or anyone they know, but they'll still take it because it's free. Have you ever had a rummage sale? Never again. You could have a new set of tires for $200 with rims on it. They go, nope, I'm not paying more than $75 just out of principle. There are people like that. But then, hear me everyone, is that there's also us, perhaps you, perhaps me, that think you can just handle it on your own. Thank you very much. No, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. No, I'm really not okay. But I want to look like I'm okay and I don't need your help. Thank you, but I don't, but we do. You ever noticed a friend that you realize the countenance in them is off, their shoulders are off, the luster in their face is off, and then you know that they're just trying to steal themselves? But then you finally get through that, and all of a sudden they're just a puddle because they've said, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. Tim and his wife wanted to do something kind for us, and we kept on saying, no, that's fine, we don't need it. And then Tim said, this is something that I've remembered ever since. Don't steal my blessing. In other words, it was a win for Tim and his wife, but it was also a win for us. Think of how cruel social media and the world is. Of how many barbs are just shot across. That this week, I want you to think about the ways that you do serve. I don't want you to think going from here that you have a lot of work to do. It's just be nice and be kind. And the people you meet, serve them, offer. But the people to whom we're called to love and serve, if there's someone in your life this week who says, "How may I help you?" don't steal their blessing. Because here's the deal, if we're going to serve one another, there needs to be a waitstaff, but there also needs to be somebody in the restaurant. My compliments to the chef. Great service. Hey, you were great customers. You may think it sounds Rockwellian. Boy, oh baby, do I want to go back. Maybe I just grew up in a small town. Not where they're nicer, but in some ways you have to be because you have to see them every single day. But this week, win, win, win. Serve. But also don't be afraid to be served. Renew your faith in all the ways we talked about, not the least of which, serve. So help us God. Amen.
We hope you found this week's message helpful as you think about how you will live out your faith each day. If you would like to support the ministries at St. Andrew Lutheran Church, you can do so by having your credit card information available and then texting a gift to 952-260-9007.